Okay, right off the bat, this is not a very good video. It seems every time I try and improve my gear and techniques, the results just get worse. On this trip, while trying to compensate for the overcast weather, I'd had my diode light too bright and the beam was narrower than I thought, so I kept washing things out. I probably would have been better off without it. And I still cannot get the hang of that macro lens on the GoPro. So there are a lot of fuzzy videos of small critters. I also fell back into the bad habit of chasing squirrels and kept shifting focus, leading to ridiculously short clips. Some of the most beautiful dives I've ever been on, with some of the worst footage. It was demotivating to say the least, which was another reason it took so long to edit this video. So with that out of the way, on with the show. This was my first trip to this side of the planet, so I didn't know exactly what I was in for. Wakatobi is a national park in the middle of the Coral Triangle, so I had high hopes. Every dive site was teeming with a quantity and diversity of coral that was astounding, and the amount of reef fish was crazy. This is what comes to mind when you think coral reef. The coral would stretch out into the distance without a pause. Gardens full of rose coral, entire fields of pumping xenia pulsating lazily, whole bushels of potato coral, staghorn coral, you name it, and it was here in abundance. I often joke I'm a warm water, pretty fishes diver, and Wakatobi fits that description to a T. Although that self-description is a little misleading, I really enjoy large pelagics as well. And that was something missing from this area. There weren't many sharks or rays or larger fish at all. I saw an eagle ray once, far out in the distance, and a couple of sharks at most. But it made up for it in sheer variety of reef fish. I've never seen so many different types of anemone fish. You'd think you'd seen them all, and then you'd find a different color or a different pattern. And then you'd repeat that with butterfly fish and angelfish and triggers and gobies and on and on. When I go on dive trips, I don't really have a checklist in mind of things I must see. I'm very happy to just be underwater, and you'll never really know what Mother Nature is going to give you on a particular dive. Sure, I have things I want to see, but it's always just a bonus for me. On this dive trip, my bonus animals were cuttlefish and sea snakes. And Mother Nature obliged. I love how cuttlefish can change their color and texture so dramatically in an instant. It almost looks fake to see this one change from camo to a warning pattern in the span of a few seconds. This female cuttlefish had an extra surprise for me. After I backed off, she returned to her spot and continued to lay her eggs, carefully placing them one by one in the coral. Sometimes I'd see other divers taking photos of something I obviously couldn't see, only later to realize it was a cuttlefish in disguise. Here you can watch me following this one and be completely oblivious to the other one I just swam right over. Did you see him? I sure didn't at the time. And then there was the cuttlefish that I think needs to go back to camouflage school. although his black and gold coloration is very cool. So on the subject of camouflage, the scorpionfish family encompasses a huge number of species, and you'll find them all over the world. These are pretty similar to the ones that I would find back home. But of course, Indonesia wasn't going to stop there. These are leaf scorpionfish. They come in 3 colors: yellow, white, and pink. These crocodile fish were also new to me. And this one definitely gets an A+ on his camo. Here's a pair of dartfish facing off. And a pair of their red cousins, fire dartfish. I used to keep these in my marine aquarium. Back then I knew them as fire gobies. At the end of one of the dives on the Wakatobi House Reef, we found this banded pipefish. They're funny because they don't even look like real animals. They look sort of fake. This is a map puffer, and a real chonk at that. Alright, if you don't like snakes, you might want to skip ahead to the 9-minute mark. For the first few days, all I ever got were glimpses of them disappearing into the coral, and I was beginning to think that would be all I would get. But toward the tail end of the week, I got some great sightings, like this one hunting along the wall. Here's John getting some photos. Later he's out of frame, but you can still see the strobes going off wildly. I was following this one for a while he moved along the wall. Luckily I noticed before too long that he was getting pretty shallow, and I stopped following him before I hit the surface. And here he is, taking a breath and diving again. I really wish I could have followed him all the way up and gotten footage, but that would have been bad. It was awesome to see them out and about in the daylight. This is an electric clam. The flashes are actually reflections of the ambient light off the fringe of their mantle. It looks much cooler in person, but it's still pretty cool. Ah, mini dory. This is a pair of skunk cleaner shrimp. I used to keep these in my aquarium too. Here's a golden mantis shrimp, hiding in his burrow, waiting to strike. I've always thought two-spined angelfish were gorgeous. I would have loved to have kept some in my aquarium, but my aquarium wasn't large enough for them. I'd see these occasionally, and they were always very shy, darting away as soon as I spotted them, until finally these two showed up and they were not camera shy at all. And coming up, no, you don't need glasses. You're about to see some out-of-focus macro shots. Sorry. Here's a magnificent anemone shrimp, and that's its name, not an aesthetic judgment. This little guy is a whip coral goby. They tend to live their entire adult lives on a single whip coral. See if you can spot the pygmy seahorse. And here's a tiny porcelain crab. The first time I really saw nudibranchs was diving in Hawaii. Here in Indonesia, they are abundant and in a lot of different variations. I think this is a blue dragon nudibranch, but not the pelagic version, which is what you'll see online if you search for that name. And I have no idea what this out-of-focus orange and white thing is. You'll just have to trust me that it was very cool. So let's talk about the Wakatobi Resort where I stayed. Getting there was a 3-hour charter flight from Bali, and from the moment you stepped on the flight till you returned to Bali, it was amazing. From the charter flight, you were taxied to a ferry that took you to the resort itself. As soon as the ferry docked, you were greeted by your own personal concierge, who escorted you to your bungalow, explained how things worked at the resort, and answered any questions you had. Due to a fortuitous mix-up, I was upgraded to an oceanfront bungalow. I, for one, wasn't going to complain. After you settled into your room, we all met up at the Longhouse and were given a briefing on the dive operations, the schedule, gear, camera room, etc. Then we all suited up and went out for a quick skills check in the lagoon and our first dive on the house reef. We even found an octopus right at the bottom of the stairs during our skills check. The dive boats, which were the same ones used to ferry us from the airport, were huge and spacious. This was the first time I've had that much personal space on a dive boat before. It even had a regular bathroom and shower on board. The dive crew would help you into your gear and help you out of your gear when you got back, and distribute warm towels and even make you tea or coffee after every dive. I've never been so spoiled before. Meanwhile, back on land, the staff would come in once in the morning for housekeeping and a second time for turn-down service, all while you were out diving. There was a single large building for meals, which was served buffet style, and by the second day, all the servers knew you and greeted you by name. Everyone at the resort was super attentive. The grounds were beautiful, the food was fantastic, and the diving was incredible. I'm not sure what else I could have asked for. And one other benefit of such a remote location revealed itself at night. The stars on the beach were absolutely unreal. You can check out those photos and others from my whole trip, link in the description. This was just one stop on my Southeast Asian adventure, and you know it was a good trip when Bali was the least interesting location. I had so much fun, both above and below water, that I can't wait to go back. Thanks for watching, and safe travels to wherever your journeys might take you.